Thanks for coming through. Again, I wanted to bring you on to talk about this because I think we've had a couple discussions in spaces on stuff. And my biggest thing is having respectful conversation with people without niggas getting out of order and out of character about certain things. Granted, I think we're going to have a little bit. I don't think we're going to have too much differencing of opinions, but I'm interested to see. But for the main topic today, though, we're going to be talking about a lot of the issues with blackwashing of anime art. Are you up to snuff on the stuff that's been going on with it, or do you need like an explanation?
Recently, but just as for the sake of the audience, let me say recently I am, but just for the sake of the audience, give a little bit of exposition. You'll probably catch me up.
Yeah, so for everybody that's wondering, recently there was a post put up by a young artist, or an article already said he was 16, or he or she was 16, by an artist named Lynn. It goes by Lynn. They took the art from the poppin' anime right now being Dandadan, and I got a picture of it as you guys can see here. Let me pull this above this. And essentially he or she redesigned these characters in a black style. They gave Ken Takakura, the male MC, made him a black guy with black hair and black skin. And ISA, they also gave her like a darker shade, a darker tone. Internet went ablaze because there was a person who says they were Japanese because they don't have an actual picture of themselves in their avatar as somebody else. Said they were Japanese and they did not respect or like the whole aspect of having characters who are traditionally Japanese or white or whatever else in their origin and pretty much blackwash them and turn them into a black person, and had a lot of issues there. That sparked a lot of the controversy, and that's what we're here to talk about today in regards to that for the most part. Now, for me in particular, when it comes to a lot of these things, I usually go by the whole principle of if it's not hurting nobody, let it fly. And stuff like this is always interesting to me, and it's why I've been so hyper-focused on discussing a lot of gatekeeping and cultural appropriation from different perspectives, because I feel like I've only ever heard it in context to black culture and black music and black art. So I have a general understanding of how that works and like what is okay and what's not okay from this perspective of our people. And this is part of why I'm doing a panel at BlurCon this year in DC, where I want to discuss this with people, where I'm curious as to how other creators and other people from different cultural backgrounds feel about this, in particular Japanese people. For the most part, I've reached out to a couple of different creators that I know are Asian, and it's a little different because I know B-Souls did an interview with me, and he had a different perspective because he's from the Philippines, he's not Japan, so this like anime isn't traditionally from his culture in general. But all that being said, with all the rise on it, I personally feel as though, again, if it's not hurting anybody, it shouldn't. But where are your thoughts in general on that as a whole?
I want to be first and foremost clear. The person that has issue with it online is not Japanese. And
right.
Let me at least say Japanese from Japan.
Right.
I think we learned from the Assassin's Creed situation that a lot of these views, perspectives, issues, and opinions that people have are Western people. Now, I'm not going to say that this person is white, but we can make an assumption that that's what they are. And I think that that's important to note, because the people that actually should be offended if this was an issue for real, aren't vocal in these conversations. Like, they just aren't. But if we're talking about just the general overall concept, I think that all this speaks to is just the lack of representation, and then people having an issue with the idea of erasure, or even just making it seem like they're being erased from whatever media. Again, why I think this is a white problem is because I don't. Japanese people they haven't seemed to voice this opinion on many other mainstream things, but they're not getting erased because somebody that did fan art changed a picture. That's not what this is. Nobody's getting erased in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, and I wonder if this would have happened if an Hispanic person would have drawn an adaptation of these characters, or if an indigenous American person or any other person, or is this only an issue because it was quote unquote blackwash?
And one thing too, I want to make very clear about this isn't a new thing. And I feel like this is only a conversation because it got outside of like nerd culture. if you've been to a convention or any kind of like area where people are trading art or whatever else, there's a million pictures of like Sonic in ones or people putting Goku and Supreme shit. This has been a thing for a long time in regards to black people putting characters within things that we identify with in our culture.
Oh, I got a black Homer Simpson. My bad. My bad. Hold on. Let me take this down because I
Jesus.
might get you in trouble.
They don't get me in trouble. Hey.
They might say we're going blackwash. We're blackwashing the Simpsons. They might say that. So
Blackwashing the Simpsons is fucking crazy.
well,
But I understand what you mean though, in regard to that. But and I don't. That's my main hypothesis why it's blowing up so much is because white people or people outside of the culture are having a conversation about it. And to your point with the Assassin's Creed stuff, that a lot of that was really disingenuous. For the factor of we've known throughout this entire game franchise that all the events that happen are not accurate. Most of them aren't historically accurate. And now we have an issue because there's a figure who was black that we gave him a position and title that's legendary, and that's where we draw the issue. Not people jumping off of 3-story buildings in the hay bales or Leonardo da Vinci making an operational tank at the 17 or whatever the time period was. This is where we have an issue. And I think that's a little bit of what annoys me about this stuff is, to your point, it's only ever a topic of discussion or issue when black people are doing it. But the main, I want to pose this to you. I'll give you the main argument that I've heard because I did some research and seeing other creators on YouTube to see who's covered it. And most of the people that I saw, obviously they were white. And the issue that I saw them have and that a lot of people have in it was the factor of whenever there is a character who may be like made 2 shades lighter or they draw like a black character in a certain way that's not 100% accurate to who they were, it's an issue and you can't do that. But now they feel like black people can do this and it's not an issue. And that's been a prevailing thing on Twitter for a while now, from what I've seen out of the research and people that have covered this a couple times over.
well, let me make sure I'm correct. You're saying that white people are saying, white creators on YouTube are saying, it's an issue when they draw a character 2 shades lighter in their own depictions of said character?
Yeah, so let's say I'm a white creator and I'm like drawing fucking let's say Yororichi from Bleach. I don't know if you know who Yororichi is, but black character in Bleach. And I'm drawing her and I'm making her the same shade as fucking Ruby Rose. That's an issue. Or I'm giving her a white, or I'm making her blonde and giving her blue eyes. That's an issue that we can't do that. Or even worse, if it's like an American animation thing where like it's old girl from the Boondocks, if it's fucking Riley or Yui from the Boondocks, now we're making them white and giving them blonde hair and blue eyes. It's an issue then, but it's not an issue now that we have characters reimagined as black. That's the main argument that I'm hearing all the time.
I think. Well, let me say in those characters, and I think that a lot of people would agree, and this is a lot of people's sentiments. But if their race is essential to the character, then that's fine. I think that these people that are doing one-off drawings, like honestly, who gives a darn, right? Who cares? For real. Like I don't care what you do. If it exists in your notebook, you posted it on Twitter, and on the Twitter you got 50,000 likes or whatever, and it just happened to blow up. I honestly do not care. I think it's weird to draw a white version of Huey and then still have him go through, like, let's say you made a whole comic strip,
right?
A white version of Huey and him still be Huey. That would be weird. That was crazy. This heart.
I was like, nigga, was that on my end or your hand?
I think that's on my end. But that would be crazy to do the black version of, or the white version of Huey and have him still do the same, like him have the same characteristics, essentially. That is weird. I think that is 100% weird. In your notebook, it doesn't matter. But I think that people, when they have these conversations, try to do this whataboutism without including the context as to what's going on and why this black character exists, why it's important for this character to be black. I think it might even be I might argue, because this is a good question. Does it matter if somebody makes a character a shade or two darker, but they're still white? I think that you probably would exemplify, or you would show some signs of like colorism in there, because like why? I think we're always gonna say why, but I don't think that anybody has a problem with you making fan art when it is trying to present some sort of representation for whatever marginalized group or whatever, or not even marginalized. If you want to make characters white, I think that that's fine. I think it might be weird in a lot of instances, but it's fine. Like, I think it's fine.
And one thing I want to address this really quickly, comment in chat. And shout out to the new people in here. I really appreciate y'all for tuning in and giving me a little bit of your time. But my guy Damien has the question. I just lost it right here. Are anime characters even characters with Japanese features for the person who took issue with it to be angry, by the way, or angry about it? And that's something that I want to kind of inform people on. If you're not aware, like, yes, these Japanese characters, they're Japanese. If anything else, most of the time when in an anime, like they will legit say that they're in Japan, or they'll say where they are, like geologically. But usually, like the rule is that these characters are Japanese. Now, they don't have. Sometimes they don't have the traits that you would stereotypically associate with Asian people in regards to like shapes of eyes or hair colors, because these characters are bright hair and they have these like grander than life designs. So they're not going to like look uber realistic because it's animated. And for the most part, even when black characters are portrayed in anime, they're not usually like 100% realistic to what a black person would look like. Sometimes they are if you're like Kubo from Bleach or certain other guys or certain other mangakas who are really good at that. But for the most part, they're still Japanese, unless told otherwise.
You think it'd be a problem if somebody drew like a Naruto or a Goku black? Like understanding that there's no distinguishing features on them to say that they are a part of a certain ethnic background or nationality or race. If you made them whatever, you think that would be a problem? Or by problem, I mean internet problem.
It shouldn't be. I'll say that. Because to your point, it's fan art and it's not, like if I make Goku black, it's not going to change the way Goku looks in his original. Like when you go watch Daima, he's still going to look the exact same. So me doing this is not going to ruin the original art design of the character at all if I'm having fun. And there's a bigger like question to have there in regards to black people and us looking for representation in places that, you know, we shouldn't have it in, to be quite honest, because we don't expect it another way around. But from that regard, I don't know. It's particularly weird in anime in particular for the factor of, to people's point in the chat, like usually anime characters themselves don't even have like traditional Japanese aesthetics. Like they're like Naruto has blue eyes and blonde hair. And he like traditionally, if you don't look at him on a random take, if you've never seen anime before, you'd assume he was a white person. And with most anime characters, they're having orange hair and all kinds of crazier hair colors, and they look a certain way, or some maybe taller, whatever it may be. But usually, whenever you're drawing things animated, you're trying to make them grander than life. Like even when you're looking at a comic book character and Captain America has 17 abs, if you're looking like the Ultimate versions, they're not going to have realistic body proportions as the regular people, or like He-Man action figures and stuff like that. And that's something that I think people don't really think about before they speak. Usually people don't think before they speak or tweet in general, but that's a whole different thing in that regard. Now, a question that I have for you as well in that regard is looking at the aspect of a possible double standard in that aspect in regards to if Japanese, because to your point, the person that had an issue with this more than likely was not a native Japanese person. Even with like the shadow stuff with Assassin's Creed, it wasn't Japanese people that had a lot of issue with it. If Japanese people as a whole like put out a PSA to everyone else and said, hey, we don't like that you do this, or this is something that we feel like is deprecative of our culture, please stop doing this, would you see issue with it, or would you be like, hey, that's what they wanted, that's their wishes, we'll let it be?
No, I think that. So I think too. I'm pro gatekeeping. I am pro preserving culture, and the reason why is not necessarily because of the person that did it first, like somebody that made the picture in question. Not saying it's a bad rendition, it's a bastardization as to what's going on. It is made to make Japanese people or anime look bad. Not saying that. It's what happens afterwards when you start to let the wheels turn in other people's minds and heads, and what's okay to clear and what's not okay to clear. And it's interesting that we're even talking about this, because there are some things in media that we just that is just let fly and is okay, and nobody has any checks or regulations or balances behind any of it. But there are some things in which people are just super duper strict on. Because what's funny is there's 50 different renditions of Batman, 50 different renditions of Superman.
Right.
Some things people probably wouldn't touch. That's fine. I think the reason why is because they're legacy characters. I would argue that Goku is like a legacy character at this point when it comes to anime.
Yeah. I agree.
I think there would actually be a problem if Goku was black. And it probably would spark conversation. Like, I'm talking about not Goku being black on somebody's internet page, but if the creators of Dragon Ball got together, especially after its creators passing, saying, you know what, we're gonna make a new version of Dragon Ball. We finish out this current one. Goku's gonna be black. I think it would be an actual problem, and people would pass down that PSA. But ultimately, because of the things that would come after that, which is people being culture vultures or appropriating the culture or making it look silly, disrespecting it ultimately. And so I wouldn't have I really would not have a problem if Japanese people came out and said it, if Indian people came out and said it, if Mexican people, Hispanic people came out and said, if people voiced their opinions about culture and it was in the efforts to preserve their culture, I would have truly no problem with it, to be honest with you.
Brother Jay says these edits were problematic because some were traces and were being sold. Fan art even darkening the characters more representing than stealing. Now, that is something I will say. If you are making fan art and reselling that fan art and making money off of somebody else's, that's where I for sure don't do that bullshit because it's not your original design at that point. Now, it just being a trace because we've all done that in school. I've been in school drawing Goku by tracing over pictures in my notebook or whatever it may be. That I don't see any issue with for your own personal use, recreating that, or even if you're just sharing for free in whatever Discord or Reddit group you're in, do that shit. But yeah, that's where I draw the line is the really selling of it.
But do you think it's a problem when people put a hard line in the sand about their culture?
No, I don't think that's an issue. And so part of the reason why I'm not
follow up after that too, though.
Part of the reason why I'm not against gatekeeping 100%, but the only issue I would have with it is the lack of unification on it, as well as the factor of most cultures and all cultures are never a monolith in their thinking of that thing. Because usually, again, I think there's a fine line between appropriation and appreciation in regards to I'm drawing this art or drawing this character because I see myself in them, in their story, in their values, whatever it may be. If it's Lee or Goku, whoever it may be, because those, especially Goku, he's inspired a lot of people to go to the gym and work out. You see a million people in the gym wearing Saiyan armor, clothes, or whatever it may be, because they were inspired to work out by watching Dragon Ball. But if Japanese people as a whole, and that's part of the reason why I was searching for Japanese creators specifically that either native to Japan or connected to their heritage to kind of give me the perspective on it, because I just don't know. And I don't want to sound ignorant in the discussion of it. And usually, again, whenever it comes to these issues, I never see Japanese people actually discussing it. It's always either Americanized Japanese people that are third generation that have been here their whole lives, or people that just aren't Japanese in general that have issues with this kind of stuff.
And I don't want to belittle their opinions. Because I believe that their opinion is valid. I just wanted to be clear that this worry about representation is very Western, specifically for what they're fighting for. I recently went to Ghana. Black representation is in abundance, right? Dark skin representation is in abundance. The models, the actors, the political figures. So this fight for representation when you're there is not so great as opposed to being in other places. And again, there's reason for it. So then I would ask you though, as a follow-up, what do you do then when you are met with the differing of opinions? So let's just say they didn't die. I think if these two didn't get, their lives ended, then Biggie and Pac would be probably without a shadow of a doubt the biggest hip hop artists of all time. Right. Even with, I know that their lives ending early helped push them up, but even if they were alive, all right, cool. We get Tekashi 6ix9ine. Biggie is no, this is way against the culture. This is over the line. This is disgusting. Tupac is yes. How do people, the culture, the ones that inhabit, how do they decide if this is right, if this is wrong, if this is praiseworthy, if this is not praiseworthy, if this is something that we should champion or something that we should squash before it even gets out there?
First, I'd say with that, like I said before, the myth, and this is part of the reason why I think gatekeeping is more of a theoretical thing than a thing that can actually be applied, because I'd like to ask people that are pro gatekeeping, what does that realistically look like? Because you're never going to get people on the same page. Hell, even with that, we've been debating men versus women and 50-50 for the last fucking 5 years, it feels like, and we still can't get on the same page about that shit. And we have all the points possible. for me, because I had this thing recently, right? I was going to get my first tattoo this February, like around my birthday time. And I really love the way that like Polynesian and Samoan tattoos look. Like I grew up watching the Usos and The Rock and all that, and I love the way they look. And in my mind, I'm like, I wanted to get something initially that was like inspired by that and get it. And also have some of my late passing grandfather in that as well. Then I thought about it. I'm like, oh shit, this is a cultural thing, and it probably means a lot more or means different things to them. Let me like search out like native people and get their perspective on it. And through watching videos and speaking to certain people that are of the culture, I ran into the same thing where like some people say that in certain islands and certain chieftains they talk to, they love the aspect of other cultures utilizing it because it's promoting their culture and it's getting more people to see how great what they do is, because this is amazing. And other people had the whole aspect of let's keep this to ourselves and keep it at its purest form possible. I think whenever you run into the issue of when you want to gatekeep and keep those things to yourself and not allow other people to do those things, I think that thing starts to die off a little bit. Because because at that point you're relying on everyone within your culture to value that thing in the same exact way if nobody else can get into it. Same thing with like cooking, right? Because I know y'all did a lot of content with the cooking with Kaya shit, right? Where you were talking about women and their lack of cooking and their ability to do so. Let's say that we said only women should be able to cook because that's a woman thing. And over time, we get into a point to where you have more women independence and they're working more, they're more educated. They don't want to do that shit as much. Well, if nobody else, no other men are allowed to cook or learn these recipes, then it just dies out because nobody does it at that point. Now, it's a very theoretical and hypothetical situation, of course, but I feel like when you open those floodgates up to other people, you're allowing for a little bit of innovation because people with different perspective and different ideas are going to allow you to elevate things more, whether it be music or whatever it may be, as well as more people getting to see that thing. Now, the policing of it and how you go about making sure it's not done in a derogatory way is a whole different thing. And I know I'm like taking a long way around to answer your simple question. I apologize on that, but
I don't think it's a simple. I don't think it's a simple question.
But to the main question in regards to like if Pac and Biggie disagree and how you go about it, for me, it just depends on that person. Because at the end of the day, you have decisions to make, and your decisions have consequences.
I'm talking about you. How would you then perceive Tekashi 6ix9ine, and are we championing him, not championing him? Because two people that we've recognized as great leaders,
right,
differ on the stance as to is he hip hop or not.
In the hypothetical situation, if I was a fan of him, because I will say that, because if I go off how I really feel about him, I'm going to say fuck no regardless. But in this hypothetical situation, if I fuck with his music and they differed upon it, I still fuck with his music. Like the same way the culture is really divided on Drake, the nigga's still in a lot of people's like Spotify raps this year. People still listen the fuck out of Drake, even during and after the debate. You're gonna feel about how you feel about it, because those things did, like, especially with music, when it comes, especially with something like R. Kelly, his music means different things to you depending on when you listen to it. If you were getting married and Step in the Name of Love came on, you have fond memories of that music and of that individual's legacy in the way it affected your life. Again, I wouldn't look at that person badly. Again, to me, it all comes down to the intent of, are you inspired by Black culture to do this thing in a respectful manner? And if you're making Black culture the butt of the joke, then I think 6ix9ine was to an extent, and making it like a gimmick, then I have issue. But if you're just showing appreciation for it, if you're somebody like oh my god, I'm blanking on her name, the singer. Oh my fucking god. We'll say Ariana Grande for lack of a better term, like, because she has a lot of like Whitney Houston-esque like way techniques and the way she goes about producing her music and the way she sings and things of that nature. She was obviously inspired by hearing other Black artists growing up to sing in that manner. Those are the situations where I'm like, yeah, do your thing. Like, you're making good music, you're not bastardizing what we did, and you took what inspired you and you made it something your own. And
I think I feel like, because you did say some interesting things, but one of the concepts is about the culture dying that I think is interesting.
Yeah.
Is that we have examples in which there are strict rules, gatekeeping, at least perceived in like different spheres.
Mm-hmm.
But yet the culture doesn't die. One of them being like the army, right? You can't run around wearing army paraphernalia. Now, it is very split. I think one time, if I'm not mistaken, we were doing a video for AMP, and it was about the boot camp thing, and you know, asking Duke about it because he had been in the army and AIM was in the services as well. It was like, well, how do you feel about this? Them, I don't really care. I see how it is disrespectful and can acknowledge that. However, I'm not gonna beat you guys up for wearing this for this video, right? But we know what happens. At least I'm pretty sure you've seen the stolen valor videos where somebody in the mall has on the valor, and then people in the army run up to him. What rank are you? What da, 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 da. But still, for the most part, and somebody, well, darn, I'm coming up with counters for my own thing. For the most part, there is a respect level for the branches of service, full stop. Now, with that being said, there's still some loose things that people bastardize and get their car wrapped in these different camos and phone cases and all this other stuff. But the army is still the army. And then on the other side, the Jewish community too. There's probably some Jews out there that are like, yo, you know, make the Jewish joke, say this, that, and third. But for the most part, there's this big brother-esque hand that says, hey, if you do this, we'll take that from you. And ultimately, for both examples, to me, it's not like the culture is dying. I think another thing to bring up in that point, though, is somebody may call it dying. Somebody may call it lack of innovation because we're not allowing these things in. Somebody may say, well, you could be bigger. But somebody may also counter that with saying, who says you get to dictate what the outcomes of these things are supposed to be? So, like, if we gatekept rap,
right,
you know, rap would not be where it is today. But if rap was still at its Kanye West, Jay-Z, Drake, Nas, KRS-One, I think I said Nas, Cool Mo D, Grandmaster Flash, Big Daddy Kane, if it was still, that was the level of rap, like that's the quality that it needed to be at, but it was just not the biggest genre of music, I think a lot of people would say, I'm okay with that. Because we don't let a Baby Kia in, or we don't let some of these other rappers in. We can still keep the quality to the Andre 3000s, the Futures, all this stuff. We can keep it high, but we don't let all these other things be. Sure, it won't be the big. There won't be an awards for it at the Grammys, or there won't be this, that, and the third. But with that being said, we can still maintain control and quality.
I see what you mean. And I agree. If that's where you feel like it should be at and you agree with it staying there, cool. But I think it not only stunts the art itself because you're not allowing like new fresh minds in it as well. But at the same time, I think part of the reason why as Black people we've advanced as far as we have in entertainment and whatever it may be came from the factor of our value of as far as our entertainment, our talent, athleticism, whatever it may be, sports, music, whatever it may be, was showcased to a certain degree where everybody admitted, oh, this is great, and we want to ingest this thing. If we got to a point to where rap never developed and we never got to make rap as popular as it is now, you could make that same argument that Black people, as far as like again, there's still a lot of generational wealth gaps in America still, but as far as we've come now, I think you could argue it wouldn't get to that. It wouldn't get to that extent. Like you still have athletes because it's not like basketball isn't a Black cultural thing or sports isn't in general. But stuff like our music and our art, which let's keep it a buck, Black people in general are like the number one export of America in regards to entertainment. Like from our music to hell, some of the acting, we usually are top in whatever field we're in. If we kept all that talent only to us, I don't think we get as much success as a whole as far as financially for us to even grow. Now, again, if you're comfortable staying in like, because essentially the way I'm perceiving it is like a Native American tribe in America who they did everything within their own culture. They had their rights, their things that they did, and they were comfortable, cool, being in their tribe and not growing massively to expand the world. And then you have the Brits, the Spaniards that just colonized everything because they wanted to grow and get bigger. If you want to be that tribe, cool. You're there, you're comfortable. But at some point, these other people are going to come knocking. And I think it's not realistic to expect people to not want some of that. It's like if you tell me that I'm a musician and my music is worth $20 million because people around the world want to hear me performing music or want to ingest my music. And this money will not only change my life, but everybody's life around me. My nigga, I'm going for it. I'm getting that bag. I'm getting that check.
Yeah, and I know people would ultimately break down and do that thing. But I think, again, if we're talking about preserving the culture, maybe there could be a slower drip, more like molasses as opposed to water,
Right.
the way that it flows. Uh, uh, just preserving what you have, because I think on the outside of that, finances is finances, capitalism is capitalism. I know that that's what people ultimately strive for, but on the at the bottom of this thing, there's still this art that exists, and that's when we get to the point where things like AI can step in and just totally make this thing disgusting, um, because it's fast food rap,
Right.
fast food whatever.
Now I feel
And we
like
get,
I do feel
well,
like
let me
it.
say this. Let me say
Go
this
ahead.
too.
Go ahead. Go
And
ahead.
we get to a point like today where whole mediums are irrelevant, because we've allowed culture to be at the bottom as opposed to money being on the top with like television. I think television, like traditional television, is one example of it. Just like being almost not almost irrelevant, but just being out the door as compared to it once was, because we haven't established or we prioritize money over culture.
Now, yeah, to that same standpoint, though, I think it's a lot more likely for you to police it than gatekeep it. Because if you're in my mind, when you're gatekeeping, you're not allowing any outside access whatsoever. You're keeping everything in house. But if we were to like very strategically, hey, we'll let you listen to this, that, or the third. We'll still own this thing, or we'll still control the quality of this thing, but you can enjoy it. You can get this, and I think we do that to a certain extent now. I think with the internet and a lot more media consumption and just output in general, there's a lot more conversations around what is ethical, what's not ethical in regards to, again, even with this, with anime, with music now, with cartoons. And that is something, cause it's kind of plays into a chat that I see here, because this guy, Brother Jay, shout out to Brother Jay, was talking about people do respect others like Afro Samurai, Michiko x Hachin, which are anime that have prevalent black characters in it. You see those characters, but even with something like Dragon Ball, people don't discuss back in the day how those characters had stereotypical like characteristics of black character, like mammy pappy caricatures back in the day. Like Mr. Popo back in the day was legit like a small black person with big red lips, and then they changed him to blue later on after a certain point. Granted, that was because a lot of like the media access into black culture in those time periods, like through propaganda with like the Soviet Union and stuff like that, they only showed black propaganda. But to a certain extent, like nobody questioned that stuff when Dragon Ball first dropped in America. Like I wasn't worried about that. Now it's the conversation more so because the way we consume media, we're more conscious to these things. And having these conversations are healthy, I feel like, to kind of know what is okay, what's not okay, but to just outright say, oh, well, you're not using it right, so everybody's in trouble because this person fucked up. It's like your brother breaks some shit, and now your mama's like, everybody go to bed because your brother fucked up. I don't see that as being something that's conducive to growth and sustainability per se, personally.
I find it hard to disagree with that. I get it. Yeah, I can't say. I agree. Ultimately, I agree. I think that maybe there's been a playbook out there, but also the arrogance of man makes them not look at the playbook. Because you would think that by today, people would diversify writing rooms and drawing rooms and just the rooms as a whole. But I understand that doesn't happen. I can't disagree. It doesn't help to just blacklist and name call, but ultimately, I know that that's human nature. These writing rooms need to be more diverse, though. I will say that.
And I will agree to this is something I've thought about for a minute now, and I'd like to throw this against the wall and kind of see what you have to say about it in regards to lack of black leadership. Now, I'm not saying we need like MLK or like a overall like a king to lead all black people and say what is right and what's wrong, but I feel like a lot of the issues with black people in particular is the lack of unity in a lot of regards. When I look at my history books and I see something like a Black Wall Street, and how successful black people were because they all gathered together under the same belief in regards to buying black and doing this black, and saw how radically successful they were in a time to where they borderline didn't have any rights or even were perceived as people. I'm like, it shouldn't be that hard for us in modern day, especially with America, because that's another topic I'm going to slightly switch to in a second in regards to black people seeking representation. Instead of being so concerned about making all these fan arts of anime characters and making them black, promote making your own original black characters and telling black stories, and support them, because they're the Invincible Fight Girl, I think is what it's called right now on Amazon, where the black girls wanted to be a wrestler. Or you're looking at Abbott Elementary, or other shows and IPs that are in the same vein as something like The Office or other predominant animation, and it's usually sometimes just as good, if not better. But black people aren't supporting it in the same manner, especially when you're looking at comic books. Like, the amount of research I've done doing more comic content, and seeing how there are so many indie creators in Atlanta or even across the world that make their own books and tell amazing stories, but people aren't giving them the same attention as they would with the 15 Batman runs that are out right now, where they're going to follow every one. And as a creator, we understand that, hey, if I make a video, again, I just did it recently. I did a video on a company called Midnight Comics based out of Metro Atlanta, and they do a lot of stories with black characters and whatnot. The video is at like 136 views right now. And not saying it has to have more views, because that could be a thing on my end, but I know as a creator that video is not going to do as well as a video that I do on the absolute Batman stuff that's dropping right now. I just know it won't, because people will not give it the same look. And even if all the black people in the world or in America watch that video, it wouldn't do as well as if everybody else watched it, but it'd still be successful. Like, if thousands of black people watch black stuff and put effort and time and money into black IPs and products, it could be radically successful. And it could more than likely lead to other investments from these studios into more like, oh, they want to see these kind of stories? Cool, we'll put money into these stories, because before anything else, before racism, before prejudice, we want to make money at the end of the day. And if we know it'll sell, we're going to put money behind it.
Well, but I think the part of it is, and this is why, again, keeping culture at the forefront is important, is because there's a trouble with writing black, even for blacks. If we look at the blacks that are in the room, you have to question, how black are you? Which is crazy to say, because I know people are going to talk about, well, you know, how is this person more black than this person? But as a black person, I feel comfortable testing, questioning, and gauging how black somebody is. I just do. That's a thing. I promise you I do. Other cultures do it too. I don't understand why it's a big deal when we do it. But then also, I do feel as if, you know, seeing yourself as a character that's already established helps open the door for you to get into, other black media or other media that looks the same as you. So if you talk about black people getting their own thing, doing their own whatever, I think it is important first to see familiar faces that look like you, not just familiar faces that look like you. Ultimately, like, it is important to see a black Batman. It is important to see a black Spider-Man, regardless as to how it performed, regardless how it's received critically. It is just important for a person to see somebody look like them. And I encourage other cultures to do it too. And I think that there's a reason why other cultures don't get into it, but I think that it's important, which leads people to doing their own thing. Now, you might say why, I guess, but it's nasty to say black people do have to prove themselves just to be a little bit better in order to get the shots that are needed. And again, people are just accustomed to like the same things over and over again. So they need to see a black Batman every once in a while. I guess it's not, I don't think there's anything wrong with any of this stuff, but that might just be me.
No, you're right. I think I will agree from that standpoint in regards to the importance of representation. Like, I've made a million fucking videos on it at this point that I can think of, where seeing somebody that looks like you in your favorite piece of media is very important, because if anything else, it shows that it's possible and you can be in those spaces, you belong in those spaces. But I think the difference in that is the sense of entitlement that we deserve to be in these spaces. More in particular, again, with anime and Japanese stuff, where if I see a Yaoichi or a Michigo in anime, cool, dope. I see a brown skinned person that looks cool, that does cool stuff, but I don't then go, I deserve to see black people in every anime that I see. I deserve to see them in this type of series. It'd be cool to see them, and I love when the mangakas do that, because it shows that they care about having diversity there, or at the very least, it is pandering, which, it's a whole different thing. But if it gets the job done, it gets the job done. Because sometimes, like Killer Bee, I don't know how far you got in Naruto, but like shit like that. But
You didn't like the attempts at being a hip hop star?
No, Kumireru. No, I'm cool, bro. I'm cool on that shit. Again, I love the character's cool as fuck because he did some cool stuff, but like the rap gimmick shit in a world full of ninjas, I don't.
But that and then that's what I was talking about earlier. You testing how black people are in those rooms, and if there are any black people in that room. Because as a black person in that room, I would probably say, you know what? For Americans, this isn't right. But also, I might be in a room that's not in America. So if that's how if that's how they perceive black people, I guess that's okay. It's really not. But I already know how they feel about us over there. It's a little bit differently. But yeah, I would. That's a bad look. I ain't gonna lie.
And I think it's getting better because I think again with Japan in particular, the biggest thing is just the fact they just didn't have access to black media. Like over time, their only black people they saw were musicians, athletes, and again, those are the people you see. Like in Naruto, they have characters inspired by Prince. Hajime no Ippo is like a boxing anime, and I think they literally have like Mike Tyson in a couple anime because like that's the people they saw. And if they didn't see them, they saw the like the Jim Crows and shit from Disney back in the day. So as they're seeing more and more black content, we're starting to get better representations of them, of us in that medium. But I just think just don't feel entitled in that because we don't. Because again, on the flip side, we wouldn't we would feel some type of way if I don't know, fucking Asian people came over and said, yeah, we deserve to have 15 Keith Apes or a bunch of Rich Bryans. We deserve to be in rap music. We deserve to be here.
I agree. I ultimately I agree with that too because I think it's weird, especially from a country that is so I don't even want to call it monolithic, but you know, homogenous as like a Japan or whatever the case may be. It is weird to beg them to do these things, and I would feel weird if like Everybody Hates Chris was out, and somebody was like, where the Indians at? What's going on? Where the Indians? Or even if I grow up and I tell my story, I'm not saying Indians aren't a part of my story, but if somebody was like, where the Indians at? I'm be thinking to myself, that's what you really want? I guess I don't know. That's kind of weird, but
It's a whole thing, bro. And when it comes to this art, again, long story short with this particular topic, because I want to move on to the Star Wars stuff at some point. We got to talk about the Star Wars shit. There's a couple takes I've heard you give on LKV a couple over the years where I'm like, if I get the chance to ask that nigga about that bullshit. But in regards to this, yeah, bro, you can make fan art, feel inspired to do so. Some people, I don't know if you know who Ozzy the Virus is, the popular artist. He does a lot of anime characters or animated characters in like a black style. He doesn't change their race, but he'll like, I think I got a picture one back here where he put like a character in like a gold chain or some shit. And it looks dope and it sells well. And that's he's made his career off of that and his particular style that he's trademarked at this point. So if you can make a living off of stuff like that, there's that ethical boundary there where you're kind of talking about how ethical and moral is that to make money off of somebody else's intellectual property. Granted, you put your own spin on it, but at the end of the day, it's still that stuff. But if you're inspired by that stuff and it's giving you inspiration to become a better artist or a creator or to be the next Christopher Nolan or Quentin, well, not Quentin Tarantino. I love Tarantino's movies, but I don't know about that. But if it inspires you to be a great creator, do so. I will say that. Do so.
And let me say this to also Indy, because I think an issue that we're going to see, but a thing that we're going to see arise in the coming years is other groups, not black, not white, but, you know, maybe, well, African is black, but Africans, Asians, Hispanics, Indians, people just from different countries and cultures and backgrounds asking for more representation. My advice to them would be, because I think culturally speaking, those groups, their families push them in certain directions. And I always say this, like the capitalism be killing them. Sometimes you do got to go with your heart. I know capitalism has told you, yo, go to school for STEM, go to school for medicine, do all these different things. But I promise you, the reason why you don't see that representation is because in the writing rooms or in the waiting rooms for the writing rooms, you're not there. And as a black man that's in STEM, I'm thinking to myself, why aren't people here? Why aren't people in these places and spaces that I'm in? But if I go backwards and look at where I'm at, and look at where my peers are, I'm talking about the ones that look like me,
Mm-hmm.
they're not there. So that's the only reason why I'm not represented. And it's because culturally things aren't pushed. So
Yeah.
that's why I think like people like Mindy Kaling have come along for the Indians.
Mm-hmm.
Now, even though I think Mindy Kaling does some jokey stuff for Indian people, and Indian people think Mindy Kaling has done some jokey stuff, I think as the next wave come in, they'll be able to kind of harness that back in. And I know it sounds like a what they call a silver lining or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
She's doing a much better job than anybody else writing Indian people would do.
Right. And to your point, that is something I want to get on really quickly. I don't want to go on a super long tangent about it, but part of the reason though we don't have representation in these areas is, to your point, part of it is black people's fault. If we keep it at a buck, with more of these creative mediums, you were never pushed to go into art. Like part of it is a capitalism issue as well, because if you don't see it. If I'm a parent in the 80s or the 90s and my kid's like, hey, I want to be an artist growing up, I know they're going to be broke, or I'm assuming they're going to be broke. I don't see the money in that. Or even something like this in general with content creation. If I told my mom, I went to college, but if I told her, hey, I don't want to go to college, I want to do YouTube full time or be a content creator full time, I get popped across the fucking head. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, there's no long-term money in that. You're going to be poor doing this thing.
Bring it to, you're gay. You're not a man.
Oh, bro.
You're not any of that. No, but I'm being serious. Like it's 70s, and my uncle was a very creative person, back in the day, but and not even from his parents. 'Cause I feel like my grandparents embraced him based off of what I understand, but he was everything under the sun, because he was like one of the first people to cut up jeans and style his brothers and sew and tailor and knit and all these other things. Also, he painted. Also, he did sidewalk art and all this other stuff. But he was definitely gay. Definitely gay. By the church called him gay. His teachers everybody called him gay.
Mm-hmm.
So, you're everything, which discourages you from being that artist that you are.
It's a sad thing to see. I had a whole poem, but I lost. I was reading the chat. Again, to everybody here, to all the new faces, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate y'all for showing up. Rather that be from the Omizi camp, or you just found this video because you wanted to hear some toxic shit, one or the other. But to move into topic number 2, and it's kind of tangentially related in regards to Star Wars. I know that you are a Star Wars fan, more so from, I don't know if it's your old setup or if you still use the Imperial like backdrop for your stuff. Because I'll see you still use that area sometimes. I don't know what your setup in your crib looks like, but I'll see you go back and forth. But how big of a Star Wars fan would you say you are? Are you only watching movies? I know you kind of have a weird thing about not liking animation as much, because I know we talked about the Clone Wars in space a little bit.
Oh God!
So hey, that's another thing we could get into. Again, I could go down a rabbit hole about a million things, but in Star Wars in particular, how big of a fan are you?
In recent times, I am less of a Star Wars fan, but especially when I was a kid, I mean, movies, books, video games, the animation. Comics, different things like that. I know some of the side stories, but I'm decently into Star Wars, depending on what you're asking.
That being said, did you watch The Acolyte at all?
See, and this is where the new Star Wars, Disney Star Wars is not interesting.
What is it about? Because it's funny enough. There's a camp of Star Wars fans who, I'll call the white ring Star Wars fans, for lack of a better term, because usually their 2 gripes are it's not George Lucas and you're forcing representation. One creator, I watched his stuff, and he instead of calling the main character by a name, he would just call her like strong female black protagonist. Like that was his running joke, and I'm like, okay, bro, I see what you're trying to get off. But I'll say his name. Fuck it, Star Wars Theory. Like I've noticed him do a little slick shit where he'll let right-wing people get in his chat and say toxic shit, and he'll like chuckle at it but won't endorse it outright. And that's like it's a small but very loud portion of the Star Wars fandom. But what is it about Disney stuff that you don't like in regards to the Star Wars?
I don't think that Disney is meant to tell adult stories. I'm an adult now. I also don't think that Disney is meant to tell like too deep stories. Like they're supposed to be deep for kids, which again goes to the adult stories. So when we're talking about something like a Star Wars, especially when I'm at the age where I can more so understand and think about and theorize and hypothesize and come back with different conclusions about deeper stories. It saddens me that such a vast universe has been left to just surface level content. Now, from my understanding, Acolyte and apparently this new little show that they have going on, I can't think of
Skeleton Crew.
Yeah, Skeleton Crew. Apparently,
Yeah.
these are decent shows, and I will say I like the first season of like Mandalorian, but I also kind of fell off. But that's my main thing. I don't have a problem with the representation thing. I have a problem with how they portray representation in media, period. So that extends to Disney. Not that I agree of calling whoever the female lead is strong black female lead instead of her name.
Right.
But what I will say is when they go into it writing a stereotypical strong black female lead, that is a problem.
In what aspects? Like, what is it? What do you mean by that?
I think it cuts down on dialogue possibilities. Only because they have to continuously try to fit this molded narrative. And these are people that don't know what any of these narratives mean in the grander scheme, what it looks like in real time, how it actually comes out in words and on paper and in your ear and stuff like that. Like I would probably mark my mom as a strong black female. Mm-hmm. I don't ever remember her saying that she's a strong black female or saying, I don't know, just obvious dialogue that hints to the fact that I don't need X, Y, and Z because I am ABC. Like that's weird.
I see what you mean. Because I know there's a lot of people who had issues with like the She-Hulk show and shit like that. But watching the Acolyte, I don't think that was an issue. I mean, there are other issues with it as far as like continuity stuff, because where it's set time period wise is kind of weird, and some characters being in there. I think anything Filoni and Favreau, obviously, those are the guys that created the Clone Wars show. And then if you've seen Favreau, because he did a lot of stuff with the MCU, he's the Foggy Nelson in the first Affleck Daredevil movie. That's who that is for people that don't know who Jon Favreau is. But I feel like they do good stuff. Most of the issues with Star Wars is mostly so the fact I think them trying to the air. They need to leave the fucking Skywalkers alone and like let that shit die. Like please leave that alone. Because it's whenever you make anything in that timeline of a verse, shit gets even more confusing because you'll have characters that you want to make strong, but they can't be stronger than Vader, because then it's like, why the fuck were they around when Vader is supposed to kill anyone stronger than him or anyone force sensitive to either work for him or kill them, one or two. Or before, I don't know. It's a whole lot of shit there. But a lot of the issue that I have with the conversation about it is the disingenuous talking points. Because most of the issues that I see people talk about too, especially when it came to the Acolyte, was like they didn't like the dialogue. If you go back and watch the original trilogy and the way George Lucas wrote people to talk, it was not how people talked. So bad to the point that Harrison Ford himself, like famously, tried to make Lucas read his own script because it was ass. And like, there's an interview, I don't remember what morning or what talk show it was. They had Mark Hamill on, but they were asking him about like anything about the movie or the script or whatever else, and he like verbatim ran off a line that he thought was terrible, and his like, I think if I remember right, verbatim was like, "Who talks like that?" So this was the issue with that, and even when you get into like all the hate that the prequels got, when people were fucking sending death threats to Hayden Christensen about him acting bad and about saying being coarse and stuff like that. People have all that critique, but they don't give that heat to George Lucas. They want everything to be like George Lucas's world and his continuity and all that good stuff. When a lot of the shit you were like going crazy on, you just gave that heat to the actors. So, and it's really wild how that turned around, because now people are like, oh, we want more Hayden Christensen's Vader now after seeing the Ahsoka show and shit like that. From my perspective, the best parts of Star Wars usually come from the expanded stuff that has other people's minds on, like a Favreau, Filoni, or the people that wrote the books or did the games, that make Star Wars great for me. I don't necessarily enjoy the main movies per se, personally.
Okay, well, get this.
Now the prequels I'm cool with. Really, if I had to pick out of like the original prequels and the trilogy, like the ones that George Lucas directed, the only one I will say I really fuck with is like maybe an Empire Strikes Back and Revenge of the Sith. Those are ones I really like. I watch them and don't really have too much of an issue with, because shit's picked up. Whenever there are movies where they're trying to have this like character dialogue and flesh out motivations and inspirations, that's where the George Lucas lack of ability to write people comes in, because it's just like,
Yeah, but I'm never, me personally though, I'm not looking at at least that era, especially like the original trilogy. I'm not looking at it for from a dialogue perspective.
right.
Especially because, especially like Return of the Jedi, this is supposed to be some feel goody story. And in some situations I can acknowledge that, we can dumb down here if X, Y, and Z is good here. Maybe in a rap conversation, is the beat better? Okay, I can sacrifice on the lyrics in some regards. So if this story is really feel good, it energizes, it brings a new hope. No pun intended. Like this is where I can, okay, they probably won't talk like that. But why am I really examining how they're talking? This is not a conversation. This is not a movie I'm putting up against, Cold Mountain or whatever other good movie that has great dialogue and great monologues and stuff like that. I'm not putting Star Wars in that kind of conversation.
Usually I wouldn't. Usually I would not give a fuck. I'm a big proponent for, if it's a kid's movie or it's a cartoon or something, if it's supposed to be fun, graded on what it's trying to be. If it's trying to be a comedy and it was funny, cool. But with Star Wars in particular, the why I go back and look at it so harshly is because this is the standard that this loud group of fans puts on anything that comes out. And sadly enough, this like small group of fans has some influence over what happens in these movies. Like with the new trilogy, how they brought in Rose, the character, and then like because of all the hate, the next movie she didn't get more lines than the person that was already dead. Like a dead person that they had to create through CGI got more screen time and more lines than an actual person that you developed and introduced in a previous movie for like hours on end, because this small, loud group of fans hated it so much. I mean, that was the issue with most of the new trilogy, in my opinion, was like them not standing firm on what they wanted to do, because Rey not being a Palpatine was something they originally said and then changed because people fucking didn't like it or whatever it may be. But that's the standard that these fans put on there. So I'm like, okay, let's be consistent in that regard. If you're going to grade these new things so harshly, like let's put that.
Let me say this. I'm not caping for them, because I think the new fans are very critical, and I don't think that there is a way to appease them. It should just Disney's focus should be ignoring new fans, ignoring old fans and attracting new. Because there's a subsection of old fans that aren't going to care about this. They understand what Star Wars is. We're watching it for this story, and we're also getting our younger kids or newer fans. This is a way for us to make a connection. But what I can say that might be a little bit of grace for them is that I would think that today, with much more maturity and a different insight on how George Lucas wrote the script, how movies were made back then, what type of movie, all this, that, and the third, they would be able to produce better dialogue. Now, them again referencing the George Lucas Center, that is where they're wrong, because I don't think that that's George Lucas's like strong point.
All right,
like, right. That part is not his strong point. Everything else is literally his strong point. Look, the visuals are the strong point. The actual the words is not a strong point. But them saying that the dialogue could be better, I think is still valid criticism, because of where we are, and what we already had in the past.
I see your point there, and I can. That's usually where I'm at, because again, they're the extreme stuff with like I'm trying to remember her name, but she was an Inquisitor in the Obi-Wan show, and she was getting death threats for just being black and existing. And shit like, so obviously that stuff I know what that is. I understand, like, you don't like black people or black women or women in general in a lot of occasions. When it comes to that group of fans, I don't know, it's stuff like that. It kind of gets to me, and I try to be very impartial, just enjoy it to an extent. But it really only gets to me when that loud outcry affects the actual product. Like when your complaining changes how this story was going to go originally is when I get mad. Because you crying has changed what could have potentially been a great story, but because it didn't start the way you wanted it to start, you didn't let it finish out. You didn't let it finish in the way that they wanted to finish it.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Well, two of the biggest problems, they can't realize that they caught once in a lifetime thing, a once in a lifetime thing. I don't know why people feel like once in a lifetime things are so replicatable. Star Wars is, was, and will forever be a phenomenon. Um, if they did it over again, it would not happen the same way. How it happened for a reason. But trying to appease these unappeasable fans that won't be satisfied until they go back into the 70s, 80s, 2000s, and relive that life, the 90s, whatever, and relive that life in that exact moment at that exact time. They won't be satisfied until that happens, full stop. So why try to appease them? I think what they miss on is like with Sonic 3, I got a and Sonic 3 and Mario, my homeboy, he has a son. He's very much into Mario. Hugely into Mario. Found out he was into Mario. I was so excited because I love Mario. Like as a kid, I loved Mario. We were definitely a Nintendo household. One of the few people that were a Nintendo household out of my friend group. So when I found out he was into Mario, like I bought him a go-kart, like a real go-kart. Too young to use it. Doesn't know how to. I don't know how is that. What did I do to you? I did this. Not old enough to really use a go-kart. Like does not know how to drive a go-kart. But I bought it. I bought it. I put on costumes and I rode around with him in it. He's into Sonic now. Dog, I want to buy the biggest Sonic toy in the world for this kid. And when Sonic comes out, what, next Friday or whatever?
I think so, yeah.
I want to go see Sonic with him front row. I want to rent out the whole theater because it feels good to have at least good enough renditions of the things that I loved as a child for this youth in my life. Not that I'm being overly critical about it and care. Sonic should not try to appeal to me. Mario should not try to appeal to me. But because this young person, I can make a connection with this young person can make a connection with me. That's what it should be about. If he gets into Star Wars, I'll be the same exact way because that's what it should be about, not appeasing my old decrepit ass. Like, who cares?
And I think that for a lot of people haven't messed up in regards to the aspect of they want those moments, but they want them to have the same exact experience that they had as a kid. Like, I want you to enjoy this thing in the same way that I enjoyed this thing, not in your way. And I know that's the biggest thing with that was like Spider-Man and like Miles Morales, where they were like, well, it's still Spider-Man, but it's not your Spider-Man, so you don't want it to be enjoyed in the same way. Even when when he's introduced in the comics and shit like that. But because I had a thing in college, right, where my freshman college roommates, country as hell. I would never think that they were like nerdy whatsoever. But apparently they like True Blood and shit like that. And I was like, cool, would y'all be up to try some anime? They had never seen anime before. So I put them on a Naruto, something easy, simple for you to understand. And bro, when them niggas got to the Lee fight, the Lee Garo fight in the tuning exams, motherfuckers lost their minds. To this day, I haven't really spoken to them in person in like 5 years since we graduated. Hell, even after we moved out. But the niggas will still send me like a text about a Lee piece of fan art they saw or whatever it may be. And the joy I got from experiencing their moment with them was amazing. And these niggas are like, we were probably like 18, 19 at the time, like grown as hell. Well, not grown, but you get the point. We're men at that point, not children. But yeah, I think people need to let that go.
Yeah, if you get into Star Wars and your lead character is a gay amputee with purple hair who's, Filipino, and my introduction to Star Wars is Hayden Christensen as, the Jedi in this situation, and my father or my uncle's introduction is Luke Skywalker, it should not matter. The thing that should matter is come Halloween, we can all put on Star Wars pajamas and take down lightsabers and dress as, a Jedi of some sort, or somebody that's, a Sith Lord of some sort. That's what shit matters, is that we all have this connection. But I mean, this exists in different things as well, like sports. We should be able to all come together and collectively enjoy basketball. But trust me, the Dr. J era hates the Michael Jordan era, hates the LeBron era, hates the Steph Curry era, definitely hates the Luka Doncic Wemby era.
Nigga, I was this close to like when I was starting my YouTube channel, I was like, what do I want to talk about? I was this close to doing basketball because I watched a lot of Lowe's stuff. Watching Lowe's comment section and being on those playbacks, nigga, I was like, yeah, I'm cool on that. I'll talk about ball every now and then, but no, I'm not going. I don't. That's some toxicity I don't want no problems with. Especially knowing me, I'm a Kobe fan, I'm a Laker fan too. Oh no, I already know how our fan base gets down. Like I'm cool on that. I don't want no problems. But no, I understand you on that point, and I have hope for future stuff in regards to Star Wars. I know they're potentially. I've heard a lot of rumors. I don't heard anything like concrete from anybody I know that knows some people about the era they're going in. I've heard shit about Rey coming back and being pregnant, and them reaching out to Boyega to come back for a new trilogy. I've heard stuff about Favreau and Filoni wanting to go into the Old Republic era, which I'm all for. I don't know if you played the Old Republic game online. I'm like a bunch of new Sith Lords and stories you can tell, Revan and all that good stuff. And it's far, far away from anything Skywalker related. But we gonna see what actually happens. Skeleton Crew, I wasn't really interested in because I will sound like a casual, but bro, if it's not about Sith Lords or Mandalorians for real, I do not care like that. I'm not gonna hold you.
I like Solo. You don't like Solo?
I didn't enjoy Solo like that. No, it was cool, but I didn't love it like that. No, not really.
It's a good movie. It's a cool rewatch. I agree with you though. I think their main thing is just get away from all of that. Get away from all that. Show me really old Star Wars. Show me really futuristic Star Wars. But whatever you do, just get away from this story. I want to see a Star Wars where the Skywalkers don't exist because they haven't existed yet, or they're like biblical figures, and it's just like we're not even talking about them for real. But somebody stubs their toe, and somebody says, "Jesus Christ." Somebody says, "Luke Skywalker."
Luke Christ is crazy. Yeah, brother Jay. Yeah, I don't know how. Again, I gotta check sources. I have some friends that know some people. So it could be completely false or just fake information. But from what I've heard, Rey coming back, she gonna be pregnant, and they're trying to get Boyega back on, even though he don't want shit to do with them after all the marketing stuff with China and all they just didn't do right by him in general.
But what's interesting though, this is why I think like fan art and just that whole community is important. For the longest time, I was watching an Avatar adaptation where it was after Korra. The new Avatar was from the Earth Kingdom. I can't remember what it was.
That's the one coming out now, I think, or the next one coming out.
Well, but so that's the one coming out. But there was a whole fanfic basically of this series. I can't even remember the Avatar.
The RDC Hood Avatar series that you're talking about.
No, it's real fanfic. I'm gonna find it. It's real fanfic, and it goes down this line of this new Avatar in a more futuristic world than where Korra existed, and they are the Avatar. And I thought it was done very well. Like it was engaging. I kept coming back to it, reading and watching and stuff like that. But people, there are creative people out there, and what they do with some of this stuff is great, and they can do their own representation. That's why the representation police, for the people that hate it, are so insane to me, especially the ones that are deep into the lore or deep into these communities. If you want a white protagonist, there's somebody out there writing a white protagonist. You just have to find that white protagonist.
Hell, they're probably already. That's the thing too with like these comic adaptations that are funny to me. Like something like Invincible had been a thing since like 2003 it was coming out, and it'd been out for a long time. So you have this story that now is taking over the fucking world that everybody loves, but it's been around for a long time. But people probably knew about it from a comic format, but studios, or maybe it wasn't pitched, I don't know, or maybe nobody picked it up at that point in time, but there's more than just Invincible out there. There's a bountiful amount of fucking stories and books and comics and stories that you can tell. Let's not just focus on milking the same three. Because to your point too with the indie stuff, not indie stuff, but just the creators, like Team 4-Star with Dragon Ball Z Abridged, bro. I tell people at this point, if you haven't watched Dragon Ball, instead of watching the actual show, just go watch Dragon Ball Z Abridged. It's like 50 videos from the Raditz, the Saiyan Saga, all the way up until Cell. You'll get the general gist of it. They'll have some funny stuff that they created themselves, but for the most part, you get all the lore that you need to know about Goku from a funny perspective, and you still get all the fights. And it's not, bruh. I absolutely love that shit. I love that shit. Granted, now I understand what's real and what's not real, because some people will watch that and think that the shit that they made up is actually canon. And they talked about that, like they made the whole they didn't start the joke, but like they really drove in the whole Goku's a bad father joke in their stuff. So that's been like a typical trope that you see, but for the most part, they did a lot of funny, dope stuff that they even like tried to flesh out some of the lore to where to make more sense. And the amount, because I watched because they did a video series where they were like going back and watching their own videos from the start and giving information in regards to like what it took for them to edit this thing or what they were thinking when they wrote this line. And the amount of effort that they put into it and seeing that, I'm like, yeah, bro, there are plenty of people out there. If you would have gave them their own series, the shit could have been fucking fire.
Yeah, I think that's why I'm on YouTube. Like, I wasn't on YouTube as a youth, and now I find myself more and more and more on YouTube because there's representation on there that exists that is like no other. I make commentary videos. I follow commentary people that are Mexican, and they give different commentary on Mexican issues, but also issues that exist just as general people, but from their perspective. I follow Indian people. I follow white moms. I follow conservatives, conservative women, conservative men, black, white. Like I can get it all from YouTube in any way, shape, form, or fashion, and I'm not necessarily hearing somebody bitch in my ear that like, oh, when are we gonna get X, Y, and Z's opinion? I already found it and I heard it. It's cool. I've digested it. I've also consumed this one. It's cool too. Now I got everybody's opinion and their perspective and their, whatever.
To use that, I guess, as a jumping point to the last topic, because I don't want to hold you all night. I already know it's almost like 10 and you got shit to do. But for new creators that may be watching, and because I'm really talking from my perspective, like I think a little bit over a year ago, to where I'm somebody who I was doing my podcast and I was making that work and kind of learning how to make thumbnails, how to navigate content creation before I got into my own channel and really like locked in. What advice would you have for somebody that wants to pursue whatever it may be, whatever content it is, and how do they start that journey, and tips and advice you may have for them in that first year? Because that first 1K journey, I mean, I don't know if you had that as much as most people do, just for the factor of you were already kind of doing LKIB, and then you kind of had a little bit of clout from working with AMP in general, and maybe your brother. I don't know what your content journey was like growing your channel, because I was there when you first started the channel, and then I saw that jump that happened like I think a year or so ago, maybe a little bit under a year ago, where you like jumped up. Did you feel like you had I'm asking like 3 questions in one, but the advice for young creators, and also I'm curious, like, did you have that traditional YouTuber like difficulty of trying to grow to that 1K or grow your platform?
K, maybe not. Finding me, yes. I think the answer is, well, for me and my situation, I think I started a channel maybe a couple years ago, 3 years ago or so, and started doing commentary, but also simultaneously while I was doing it, I was doing production for AMP. And Agent was telling me, how to be better as a content creator, this, that, and third. But I really dove deep into this. I ran into B-Souls, I ran into Toasted. People are familiar with Toasted. And it was just looking at studying ball, basically just these concepts, filmmaking concepts, movie making concepts, camera concepts, lighting concepts, and I'm getting better even today as things go on. This current lighting setup that I have is the best that I've ever done in about 3 years in my personal room. But just learning, but also trying different styles of content. So my videos are maybe members only right now on my channel, but I have vlog videos. I have competition videos like Mr. Beast and Airac, Ryan Trahan. I have videos like that. Of course, I have game style videos, heavily edited videos, faceless videos. I have all types of videos across the internet. Full stop. There's if there's a style of video that exists on YouTube, I've probably created in some way, shape, form, or fashion in an attempt to find myself. And then I settled in on commentary videos because, naturally I like to talk. So that was always a natural thing. And then it started to take off really like the beginning of this year into last year. But My advice to creators is do it. Shut everything off and do it. I know that that sounds like the most cliche, but do it. You'll know when you get a footing, and once you get a footing, then you can do some research. But if you just do it, then I think specifically as a creator, you will fare much better than anything else. Now, if you already have some established things in editing, filmmaking, script writing, all those things, then there might be a little bit different of a path for you. But first, do it. You just got to do it 100 times. You'll find what works, what doesn't work, what you like, what you don't like, and then you can make tweaks in that. I think that is something that I still discover to this day. I plan on doing some vlogs going into 25 and 25, and that's going to be just doing more and more. But I think people have to do it. I think so many people spend so much time copying, and I don't think that there's a problem with copying, but doing and finding out what it is for you is going to keep content creation sane, because content creation can become insane. It'll keep it sane for you.
I feel like, and let me know if I'm wrong or if you have a very difference of opinion here. But when I first started, first of all, I'll say I was blessed to run into different people. My guy James at a channel called Small Screen, they do a lot of movie stuff. He taught me how to edit for the most part and showed me like game on thumbnails and descriptions and stuff like that. But even past when I stopped like learning under him really heavy, I went through watching vidIQ videos, watching all Think Media, like all these other people that had stuff, and I was like, I saw what I could take, but it didn't feel like me, because I knew that I wanted to make content that would up stuff that I love to talk about, whether it be a movie nobody talked about or a character or whatever it may be. And I wanted to do it in a positive manner because I really, for the most part, I want to stay away from a lot of drama and controversy just for the fact that shit's tiring. And nigga, you'd be burnt out. I don't want to argue with people in my comment section. I already get enough of people like that in certain videos when I cover anything remotely controversial. There'd be motherfuckers in the I had slight side tangent, but just last night on a clip I put out from about the Assassin's Creed Shadows shit like months ago, a dude went in and took the time to Google Translate a whole paragraph into Japanese and then post that in my comment section.
That's crazy.
I'm like, bro, we still doing this shit like 4 or 5 months after. So it's stuff like that I try to stay away from. But for the most part, I noticed that Think Media and all those other places, they don't have information regarding your niche and who you want to communicate with, especially when it came to like black creators. Because I noticed like they would do something, and then I watched somebody like CJ the Champ, where this nigga puts out like one video every blue moon, but every one is a fucking hit. So I'm like, he doesn't follow any of the traditional stuff that all these other people say to do. So it's kind of like, hey, just do this shit. Even when it came to like putting out videos at a certain time period, I'll put out a video. I think when the second season of Them came out, I binged that entire show in a day, and then sat down and recorded it and edited that video and got it out, and it did really well. But then I also I put out a video on something 2 weeks late, and it's still done well. So like the format that people lay out as far as other creators, it works to an extent sometimes, but for the most part, if you just do shit, stuff may happen. You never know. You're gonna look into a lot of shit.
Yeah, I think a lot of that stuff is trash. Like, it serves a purpose, but for the most part, it's trash. It is extremely foundational, and I'm talking about extremely foundational stuff. And it might be able to spark inspiration. It might be able to get you from point A to point B, but at some point you got to experiment and do your own, and just try, fail, succeed, fail, succeed, fail. I even encourage people to start over. Like, people should start over more often than not. Let's Keep It a Buck just came up with a new TikTok short form style, similar to our oldest short form style, but we got into more heavily edited shorts, whatever. We were putting it on our old TikTok. It wasn't working. Like, it really was not working. Started a whole new page, got 1,000 in a week, and maybe our third TikTok got 500,000 views. Right? Quickly. Like, this is magical. But I think that there's like numbers and studies out there on how many times um, a business owner tried to do a business before it worked for them. You know, they started over on a business. I can even say for myself, like I started college hella late, or well, finished college hella late, but that's because I started over so many times because I grew as a person, as a man. I got different perspectives, different opinions, different lived experiences, and it made it easier for me to complete college with a clear mind. Um, so I think that people, I know life makes it seem like there's not so much time and there's different people that get things done in a year, but I think it's just life advice as a whole. If you're not trying actively something new, a new technique, a new angle, a new perspective, a new edit, a new whatever, then I don't think that you're succeeding. These channels that I see channels all the time, and I don't want to go too long into it, but these channels all the time get on this same path. Even when they're seeing upward mobility, they do the same exact thing over and over again, and their longevity is dog shit. Like they plateau, they can't figure out why. That's why you be seeing these channels with 100K subs, 200K subs, 300K subs. They can't even pull 10K views, 5K views, 2K views on their channels just because they're so reluctant to try or even start over. Some of them should really start over. So that's my advice to new creators. Try and start over. Cut everything off. Try, start over.
The last thing I would ask, and slightly tangential to that point as well, in regards to the latter part of that, let's say you're a creator now, you've gotten a couple thousand subs, you've gotten some videos that have done well. How do you go about building that community of people?
I think that that's hard. Um, that's hard. Interacting genuine, being genuine, I think is the main thing. Being genuine, taking the time to interact genuinely, um, and being personable, however they say it. I know there's a lot of channels that have a lot of subs and have zero community, and I know that there are small channels with not as many subs that have a major community. And I even think at one point in time, like Let's Keep It a Buck was like that. Um, but I remember the just the time spent in order to gain such a community. Um, and when we remember we talk about outcomes when it comes to culture, I think community is something that is to me is an important outcome, not only because of the financial gain that you can have from having a really great community, because you could have 500K subs and somebody could have 50K subs and they could be making more money with that 50K subs and you got that 500K subs. But I think it keeps you sane as a person. Like I like putting out videos, I like putting out tweets, I like putting out opinions, and then somebody like you DMing me or anybody else DMing me or messaging me in the Discord and saying, "Yo, I disagree with that. Let's have a conversation about it." That keeps me sane. Because if nobody challenges anybody or if nobody brings new information, nobody keeps having the conversations. At this point, like I'm literally looking at my closet. I'm looking at my camera, this big light, a closet. I put out a video and I become robotic. So I would tell those people just continue to be personable, continue to take the time to create genuine things. Um, yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on. It's kind of surreal. I think I started the show a lot more nervous because I'm like, damn, I watched y'all niggas for what, like 3-4 years prior to this before I've even doing content heavy, and I will give thanks to you and be so specifically just because y'all gave a lot of the information. Y'all, I don't know if y'all know this, but like even some of the throwaway game y'all have on the pod or in different videos you do, like me using Riverside for certain stuff, I didn't even know about it until I heard B Souls talk about it like randomly in a throw off episode of the pod. So the stuff that y'all say and do does benefit a lot more people than you think it does. Just to give you guys just your flowers on that regarding that end. You guys do great work. You do great content. And hopefully I'll see y'all at some point again. We'll discuss stuff again. But before you're ready to go out of here, do you want to let people that aren't aware of who you are or what you do, like your platform, that they can find you, maybe what you have coming up?
I'm Omeezy on most socials. OHMEEZZY. I make commentaries because I make commentary videos on my channel because I'm a very opinionated person. Um, and I'll have conversation with anybody at any time. That's if I want to. I'm not going on platforms like Aiden Ross to have conversations, which is crazy. You know what's crazy? Don't be surprised if it happens soon. I might be on an episode of Middle Ground.
Oh shit.
Only
Now-
reason why I say that is because the dude from Middle Ground, the host nigga, he follows me now, and we follow each other on Twitter, and we've had interaction, and I think that's how he gets these people. And I'm not saying that is to say like, oh yeah, we'll boost this up, but it just shows like I am down for a conversation, but in a meaningful and impactful way. I'm not
Right.
conversating just to conversate, and I know a lot of people do that. I would probably turn down Middle Ground. People would probably tell me I should, but I would probably turn down Middle Ground due to the sole fact that I don't think that it leads to meaningful conversation. So
Right.
if you find me, I'm willing to have a meaningful conversation about anything that I've said.
Say less. Also, real quick, because I gotta know, because I think your brother be capping about a lot of shit. Was Lo watching Dragon Ball like that growing up? Was he watching anime like that?
Who wasn't? Yeah,
Hey, I don't know. Hey, because I think I was in his playback one night. We had this whole conversation. That nigga, you already know how your brother gets, how nasty he is. So I was like, nigga, do you know ball for real? He was like, bro, of course, nigga, I know ball. You see my YouTube section? I'm like, well, it shows me that you don't know, so you looking shit up. So I don't know if you really know ball for real, my nigga. I don't know.
Now I feel like he can get talked out of the room pretty fast.
Right.
But yeah, who wasn't watching Dragon Ball growing up? What?
Hey, I don't know. I had to ask. But yeah, man, Omizi, pretty much. Thank you for coming on, bro. Appreciate it. For anybody watching, again, I am Captain Diesel. For the new people that are watching, I cover gaming, anime, music, all that good stuff. I've done some work on Power Rangers or whatever random nerdy shit that I feel like I want to talk about or make a video on to bring some light to. Y'all can find it on this channel. I play some games and hopefully, have more great people like Omizi on to have conversations with. These are the Captain's Lounges. These are going to be more conversation oriented, so I don't have to worry about editing a long ass video or scripting it. I can have genuine conversations with genuine people and get them out there. But again, this has been Captain Diesel of Captain Diesel's Dojo. And for everybody watching, I want you to always remember. And then my soundboard don't work. All right, bro. See y'all niggas later. Deuces.